Can you download it on YouTube?
It's on YouTube. Oh
Are we
my goodness. We are live. We are live. I like dance intro. So for those of you who are watching, Dr. Olabintan here. This song is my new jam. No Turning Back by Gaze Baba and Lawrence or your. Don't worry, I will drop the link in the comments because this is, I mean, it's already had 5.5 million views, 11 days. It's, yeah. No, sorry.
This is a nice warm up before we start.
So I would drop the comments. So for those of you who are watching live, replay, hashtag replay, sorry, bye, and hashtag live. Let me know where you're watching from. I am excited this beautiful Tuesday, the day after a holiday that feels like a Monday. We're going to have conversations on how improving your health improves your marriage, the interlink, the interplay. And I'm having on with me none other than Dr. Evelyn Adekolu. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did.
I did? Yes. Cool. Okay. All right. All right. So real quick, Doc, for those who are watching who are like, all right, who's this Doc? Could you introduce yourself to us? Who are you? And what do you do, Doc? What do you do?
Sure. As you introduced myself, I'm Dr. Evelyn. I am a child of God first and foremost, because I realized with all the roles that I hold by God's grace, I realized that I could not do it all without God's grace. And so I always give him honor. Also, I am a daughter of immigrant parents that migrated from Nigeria many years ago, just to give their children a better life. And I am a wife to Dr. Michael and a mother to two lovely boys. And outside of that, professionally, I am an board certified internal medicine physician who practices mainly in the hospitalist setting, in a hospital setting. And on another side, I also am a marriage coach along with my husband, and we are co-founders. I'm a co-founder of Matrimony MD.
All right. And for those of you who are watching, why the heck are we talking about this? I got to tell you, one of the things that come to mind, I love when couples come visit, and the husband and the wife, and they're like telling like, oh, no, you ate that stuff, or, you're not taking your medicine. And I got to tell you something. There's something about being, having a partner in life that helps increase your health outcomes or outlook, or the chances of you living long and well. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. So we're having conversations in line with that. But Doc, you're an internist, and then you do the hospitalist work, and then marriage coaching. So, where, like, how
does that link up? Well, the thing about it is marriage is a major contributor to your overall well-being. The key factor, though, is a good marriage. So it's the quality of your marriage that really makes the huge difference. So not just marriage, because you could be married but be miserable in your marriage. And, high conflict marriages do show display detrimental is detrimental to your health. However, if you have a positive marriage, a thriving marriage, then those couples tend to live longer, the lifespan increases, better heart health, better mental health, less emotional turmoil, because we know chronic stress can cause increased inflammation, cortisol production, and all of these things are not good for the health and not good for even our mental health.
Okay, so was it more a personal moment that made you take this path? Like, how did you veer here? Like, how?
Right. So that is a great question. So my husband and I, we both did residency together. And we met when I was a medical student, and I knew nothing about marriage. I remember I had my husband and I had three premarital sessions, and that was pretty much it. And we were kind of like, okay, go get married. And to no fault of anybody else, I think our schedule was just really busy. We were swamped. And so a lot of times we would be studying together and doing all these things together, but really be losing our marriage in a way because we were so focused on our goals. We were so focused on becoming that physician, finishing up medical school, finishing up our residency training. We were both residents together. And then for him, going on to fellowship. And so all of these things we felt like took precedence and should not have. And so along the way, we decided to be more intentional about our marriage. We decided to go through conferences, to go through, coaching lessons and things like that. And so we now feel like we want to pour into healthcare workers, healthcare providers, doctors, physicians who are who are also along this journey, to make sure that we teach them in the way that, we learned later on in our marriage. And so, that's one thing that has caused us to want to do this, is just to help the younger generation, or the generation that we're still living in, that is not as intentional with their marriage.
Okay. All right. Well, I like what you do, and I like that you do with your husband. It's going to be it will be a game changer when it comes to this space. Marriage is a good thing when it's a good one. And so we're having this conversation in line with that. So, Doc, my next question. So, a lot of people don't see the connection between health and marriage. How are they linked? I know you touched on it earlier, but I want us to zone in more. What's the interconnection between health and marriage,
Yeah.
specifically?
Right. So, as I mentioned, when you have a healthy marriage, it's going to show in your mental health as well as your physical health. A marriage that's filled with trouble, high conflict, oftentimes causes a lot of stress. And we know that chronic stress increases cortisol, that increases inflammation in your body, that can lead to heart problems. We know about the broken heart syndrome, and that syndrome, we know that decreases your the heart pump. It causes increased blood pressure when you're stressed out. Your immune system is decreased. You're just again, the mental torment. And so that is when you're in unhealthy marriages. When you're in a healthy marriage, though, it has been linked to longer lifespan, good heart health, good mental health, and just all of the things that have to do with just joy, right? That we usually can have when we're in happy marriages.
Okay, so what are some health-related struggles that often create tension in marriages? Yeah, let me let you speak to that, because I have examples. But what are some health-related struggles that often create tension in marriage that you've observed, and then we could talk about the way forward with those.
Right. One of them is cancer. Oftentimes when you get a cancer diagnosis, there's never a good time to hear that. Often couples struggle with just, anticipatory guidance, like what would happen next? Will my loved one die? The stress and the financial burden that even comes with undergoing treatments. Just, the mental unrest, fatigue, stress, going to appointments, so I would say, cancer is one that is really taken a toll on couples. I also think that even with just the physical appearance of, maybe after undergoing chemotherapy, sometimes, women or men, they may not feel confident. They may not feel beautiful anymore. Some women who've undergone a mastectomy, sometimes without getting the reconstructive surgery, sometimes there is, this body shame, there is guilt. And so sometimes we do see that a lot with cancer. Even other chronic illnesses like diabetes, and just, needing insulin, needing to learn how to inject insulin, needing to learn how to just, change your eating habits and exercise. So all of this, these chronic illnesses can definitely take a toll in marriage, as well as we've seen mental illness as well, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. Some of our mental illnesses can certainly also increase, stress in marriage. And so we've seen where couples are not communicating anymore because, again, there's depression. And so for whatever reason, we definitely see that. We definitely see that they're affected even in their intimacy, right? So we see intimacy all often affected when there's chronic illness, including cancer. And, we can also see things like erectile dysfunction that obviously, can cause decreased intimacy, and all of these things that affect marriage, because, there are different levels of intimacy in marriage. One of them is it's not just sexual, but there's physical intimacy and other intimacy as well.
Okay. So I got to say, another thing I tend to see also is maybe one patient or one person or a partner is more vested in, well, I want to eat healthy. I want to eat more fruits and vegetables, but the other one is not quite in the same wavelength. And so there's a discordance there. And so they feel frustrated that you're buying all the things I'm trying to avoid. So and I know this is a very broad topic, but what are tips, let's say, for the person who's healthier, having to carry the weight when it comes to health for both parties? What are tips to thrive? Because the whole point is, even with it, that you're married, and it's ideally, for better or for worse, all things being equal, So what advice do you have to the person who's carrying the weight of the burden of responsibility, who feels the shorter end of the stick? I guess that's the best way to ask. Any tips, any counsel for that person before we go to the one that's in that shoe?
For the ill partner, is that
No,
more
for
for
the
the
one
ill
that's
partner?
not, the one that's not ill, like who's
That's not
carrying the
ill.
burden. Yeah.
Got
Mhm.
it. I think there are many things. Number one, I think the financial burden, right? So now, if there's a chronic illness that maybe the partner who is um, ill is no longer able to put in the hours at work, is no longer able to maybe be the breadwinner, if that was the situation, whatever the dynamic was. Oftentimes you see that financial strain on that partner. The other thing is, like you mentioned, is sometimes you have a shopping list, and that, the partner who's ill is not really taking ownership of the things they need to eat, and they're requesting things that that are not healthy. That can certainly cause conflict. And so I think what helps is having the discussion of, how you having a discussion with a nutritionist, even with the primary care doctors, go into the appointments with the loved one to say, here are some struggles, obviously not shaming, never shaming the loved one, right? Because sometimes the partner who's healthy feels guilty, they feel this tension, they feel this burden, they also sometimes feel neglected, that their needs are not being taken care of, because again, they're putting their loved one first. So sometimes it could be this, tension where it comes to,
Mhm.
well, I'm doing everything for you and not really don't have time for myself. And so we can see that, and some couples do need therapy and counseling and coaching to get through this phase, and this new dynamic, because it is a new dynamic, and they need to be adaptable. And so oftentimes it does take a while before you can understand that this is the new normal of your marriage. And so, yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, I hear support. I hear asking for help in your response. And so for the person who tends to carry the burden a lot, as far as taking the patient to or taking the spouse to the appointment, having to, put their own health sometimes in the back burner, asking for help, there are support. There are resources. You do have to ask your primary care doctor, talk to a nutritionist, and actually share. There's actually a diagnosis called caregiver
Burden,
a burden or caregiver role strain.
burnouts. Yeah.
So it is actually a medical condition, but those conversations need to be had. And then it's about creating community and creating help for the person as well. Now, for the person who's let's start with the one who's, I mean, obviously when someone has cancer, it's not there. No one brings that on. But for the person who maybe they have different styles when it comes to health. One person is like, oh, I'm very health conscious, and the other person is not, and it's starting to cause tension. What tips do you have for the person who's health conscious and the one that's not so much? Because we want them
I
to work together, right?
Right. I mean, the whole point is to eventually, certainly, to work together. I think one of the things that we have to approach our spouses with is with love. I think we have to avoid shaming them. Oftentimes, when anyone feels shamed, they're more likely to go the other way. So now you want them to do some of the great things, like eating healthier, exercise and moving, but now they feel like you're almost nagging them. You're almost shaming them. You're making them feel guilty. Nobody responds to nagging, in a great way, right? We sometimes withdraw, especially if it's a man, they may pull back and just, not feel supported. And so, as we said earlier, we want to feel supported. We want to say some of the right things to them. And sometimes you may not know how to approach this. And that's why we mentioned like nutritionist, a primary care doctor. And things like that. So I think oftentimes is just understanding how not to shame your spouse and to still treat them with respect. Because at the end of the day, we have to love and respect. And whenever we say anything, it's not how you say it, but it's not what you say, but really how you say it. And so how can you say that, well, babe, I want us to eat more vegetables. Why don't you buy more vegetables? Right. So if you're the wife, or if you're the man, whatever the dynamic is, buy more of the things that you want them to have, and make it more tasty, make it more interested. And you'll be surprised how everyone will buy into it. I know even in my household, when I wanted to make a change to nutrition, And, I see my husband who's, skinny and fit and all these things. And I'm like, well, I need to, if I eat like just that burger, I'm going to gain like 5 pounds. So maybe I decrease the bread on my bun, but I also, maybe increase vegetables altogether, right? Have greens with it. And so I think it's just honestly little changes at a time sometimes causes more buy-in than when you make big changes. And so, yeah.
I like that. Little changes at a time. Um, Nobody likes a nag. Oh my goodness. But you know what? So and I see, like, I actually had a client today, and I could see the concern in her eyes, but I could also see the eye roll. He's like, dude, like, why are you, like, almost like, why are you saying that? Um, and but I could see the concern. Like, she actually was almost in tears, like, she's worried about him. But one of the things that you mentioned, you got to treat your spouse with respect, understanding that they want their autonomy, meaning the right to make decision, right? Not the right to say, this is what I want, this is what's important to me, not to be told what to do. And so we have to creatively find ways to nudge them. Um, and little changes at a time. I love it. We got to be patient with the process. It's like, come on, you're eating death. That's bad. Don't eat, but it tastes good. And yes, Isabel, I agree. Big changes are hard to keep up with. So little changes at a time. Now, what if you've been trying for a year and a half? Let's say you're like, the sugars are high, and the doctor's like, you know what? If not, we're gonna have to start you on this medicine. We're gonna add more medicines, and you're still trying and trying, and you feel like you've hit a wall. Do you have any other pointers to get more buy-in on the side of the spouse? Because the truth is, if anything happens to your spouse, you carry the burden too. So there is something in it for you too to encourage healthier lifestyles. Any other tricks up your sleeve, Doc? Anything else?
I think besides that is understanding why they're not motivated. Why is there no motivation? Do they not understand the diagnosis? Do they not really understand the impact on their health? I mean, after a year of not seeing change, then you start to question if they just, maybe they're going through, again, when you get diagnosed with chronic illness, sometimes you do go through depression. Sometimes you're going through grieving, the stages of loss. Are they still trying to bargain? Are they feeling guilty? Are they feeling sad? Are they having difficulty accepting it? So I think sometimes it's also addressing what is the underlying reason why the spouse is not ready for change. And I think that, the other, so it would be, again, seeking other voices, because sometimes our voice, depending on, again, our approach for the past year, our voice may just they may just mute us, right? At the end of the day, or mute the partner because they're just tired of hearing the same thing, and it's become like nagging. And so sometimes getting other of the specialty, whether if it's diabetes, the endocrinologist, to kind of talk more about it, to get into some of the counseling sessions as well about just what this disease is and what are the consequences. Sometimes that's helpful in just understanding why is there no motivation for change. So I think it starts there. The other trick is, I think, also looking at the family as a whole and saying, I want you to stay alive for the next 10 years. I want us to see our children graduate. I want us to see our children go to college. I want us to see our children get married. I don't want to be a widow, or, whatever the situation is. I think also getting them to be future oriented. So what are the reasons why you want them to make this change? Is it because, again, some of the goals that you may have altogether as a couple, or the goals that you have as a family,
Yeah, as a couple, what's your why? Not just the individual goal, the couple goal, because that's what's going to yield buy-in. All right, so Doc, I know we gave already quite a few examples, but what are other things that couples, so both partners, can do to encourage and support each other's well-being, even if they're not copying their style? Like, that's not my style, I don't do that. But what are tips for men and women? How do we encourage, support each other's well-being? What are tips?
yeah.
Easy, make it easy, Doc. Make it easy.
Easy tips. Okay, so easy tips. Number one, just increasing your mobility. So going for walks in the evening, just saying, hey, and it doesn't have to be so rigorous, right? Sometimes we want a change. You want something, you want to start rigorous, and oftentimes, sometimes the easy, slow buy-in is like, let's go for a walk this evening. Like, let's take a 15-minute walk this week. And you could just say, and while you're walking, you're improving your marriage because you're talking. You can even go out with the entire family, like everyone's walking outside, the weather is nice now. And so, I think incorporating that in your evening routine is helpful. I spoke
I
about
like
the
the
diet,
date
how you
walks.
can make this. I'm sorry.
I like the date walks. The date walks.
Yeah, the date walks. And I also think just connecting on a level, because sometimes also when you're emotionally disconnected, it's really hard to receive anything from your spouse. Like when I say receive, meaning even words of, of encouragement, or words of, I want you to change this because of that. So I think also being a friend to your spouse. So how do you become friends? So do activities together, like recreation activities. Go for a hike, go for a jog, watch a movie together and talk about some, things that you're interested in. So I think just bonding as a couple is also helpful, because you want your spouse to see you as a friend and not really this person that, again, nags about their unhealthy choices. And then, when they see you as a friend, there is trust as rebuilt. There is, again, that common ground of, okay, this person actually really wants my best interest. They're my spouse. And so I think trust is often, lacking sometimes when we, again, nag, or when we go to the doctor and say, he's not doing this, or he's snoring, or she's snoring, and she's not using her CPAP. So now we become this tatty-tail spouse. And
I
so
like
that doesn't go well.
I like the tattlers, though. I gotta tell you, I love them. They give me all the juicy
Right, that's
stuff.
how you get the diagnosis, right? They're like, my spouse snores, and you're like, okay, let's do a sleep study. But sometimes, again, the spouse doesn't take well to that, because they feel like when they go to the doctors, you're going to spill on them. And so sometimes that trust is broken. And so it's very important that while we want the best for our spouse, we have to do it, again, like I said, in respect, and in making sure that we're honoring them and honoring the things that we say. Yeah.
I like that. So you want to check in, and I would like to think that when someone brings their spouse, they actually want them because they know that they have their best interests at heart. So they want them to come and advocate, but there's a way to also communicate that, not like you're talking to a child, with respecting his adulthood or her. Why I say
Yes.
his or hers. Okay. So
Mhm.
no judgment here. Now, my next question is, what are do you have any stories? Of course, you don't divulge the information, but any inspired stories of couples who strengthen their marriage through better health choices, so we can see what's possible when we do that.
Yeah, I think even as a resident, I had the primary care clinics. Now I do mainly inpatient. So oftentimes I see patients who maybe I've taken care of in the past, and they now come back, back into the hospital for whatever reason. And now I've seen that they have made lifestyle changes, right? They have lost that weight. And it's almost great, because when you see them and they come with their spouse, I feel like those patients happen to make those changes easier than when they are not, in a marriage that's supportive. That's one thing I can tell you that I've noticed. And so I've seen couples where, again, I see them a year later and they've lost weight, they've made changes. But I've also seen, again, stories where there hasn't been the change made because there was no accountability, or there
Mm.
was not that marriage support. But oftentimes, especially with, patients with a myriad of problems, I think when they come in and they have that support from the spouse, I feel like they stay in the hospital with less time. They're less likely readmitted because they have that support. And I think that they oftentimes will go along with the treatment plan, because there's some people that will tell you, listen, talk to my spouse about it. I don't want to know anything. I can't remember anything that you're going to say. And so that support is definitely good. And so this is when I see stories that are positive, is when that relationship is kind of like, this is my friend, this is my spouse, and tell them everything about what you need me to change, and I will do it. And then you see them, a year later, and they're like lost that, that weight, or, doing better with blood sugars, and their hemoglobin A1C looks better.
Awesome. And one of the things I wanted to also highlight is the fact that you got to see the progress. You know, small changes sometimes are often missed. So when you're looking at your spouse, and looking at your partner to see, okay, oh man, yes, I want them to eat only fruits and vegetables. Yeah, that would be great. But if they're adding more grains, I need you to see that they're making progress and celebrate that. Otherwise, it'd be a frustrating journey. So little changes count, but you've got to see them. I think it's the same thing in life. We want to transform overnight, right? Just go from this bad habit to automatically to the next good habit, that would be great. But it's not always realistic. So those small changes, your spouse, I need you to notice them and celebrate them. They're called small wins, big wins. Let's take them. But Doc, this has been very encouraging. I hope our viewers are inspired to maybe change strategies, to create win-wins for you and your spouse, to find creative ways to encourage each other to make healthier choices. And even with spouses that are going through some health challenges, there are still ways to create a community. So Doc, for someone who's watching who's like, "Oh, all right, I guess I'll try this again. But I don't know if this is going to work. I feel like we butt heads over our health. We see things differently." Any words of encouragement before we wrap up?
Yeah. I love what you just said, Dr. Tolu. The last statement you said is more about positive reinforcement. I think oftentimes we're waiting to see a big change and like we may not see it right away. And so I think it's making those comments about what doesn't show on the scale is maybe they just look better. They fit better in their jeans. So making those little comments honestly motivates. And for me, I've had to lose weight myself, I know that those little comments are motivating. And so let's motivate our spouse by making comments of even their small victories. Maybe it's not 10 pounds on the scale, but they look better. They fit better. They're not short of breath walking down the street anymore. Those things help. Overall, I think as far as a summary of everything, I think that it's important to, again, there's a big link to a healthy marriage when it comes to your wellness overall. And so I think that, when you are thinking about marrying also, we say marry well. If you marry well, some of these struggles are going to be less likely. But even if you don't, there's help out there. There are people out there that can help you, that have been through some of the struggles that you've been through, and that can help you. I think overall, just making sure to do the small things like walk together, walk with your spouse, go with them to their appointments, take notes, be there with their primary care doctor and try to see how you can make those small changes. And always remember to give positive reinforcements because that does go a long way.
That's right. It goes a long way. And when you go for the walk, that's not the time to tell them other things are not doing and they're doing right. That's not the time. It's a date walk.
Yeah.
So it's soft, easy, light,
Yes. It's all about timing too. We don't want to talk about these things when we're hot and maybe there's a heated argument and then you bring up something that can just take them like 10 steps back. So just understanding that timing is everything, tone is everything, our body language is everything. I think people read more how you say things than what you actually say. So doing everything in love and respect is always a good way to approach these type of discussions with our spouse. And in the beginning, I didn't thank you for having me on, but I just wanted to say a big thank you, Dr. Tolu. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And you're always motivating and encouraging, and the work that you do is very important. And so thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
Thank you. I'm delighted to have you on, and we're going to do this again. So thank you for coming. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you taking the time. But Doc, I want to comment. We got some comments here. He said, Isabella Boateng, thank you for joining. She said, praise them for the little changes. That's her take home. Awesome. And then she also says, don't take him to the ice cream shop too. Oh my goodness. And timing is key. Ooh, timing. Sometimes we want to just let it out and be free of the tension that's building up, but we can purse and release it, just gently, like a deflated balloon oozing out little by little. Okay, Doc. So for those who are watching who are like, I like this doctor, I like that she's a coach, marriage could look, and just so you know, no marriage is self-made. I want to say that, like, it takes work, intentional work. I know people who are married over 40 years still going for couples retreats to learn how to better understand each other. So it is a work. It's a beautiful work, but please be encouraged. But Doc, for those who are watching who are like, I want to connect with her, I want her to come talk on a platform, encourage couples to do better or be encouraged to do better for each other. Doc, where can people find you?
So you can find me at Dr. Eve MD. That's my Instagram profile. My Facebook profile is Eve Ade. That's EVEADE. And you can find me on matrimonymd.com. That is a a landing page that you can send me a notes that you want to meet with me, and we can like meet up on a Zoom link or something like that. And also, while we're here, I do want to say that none of what I said has anything to do with my employee. And I just wanted to say that my employer, sorry. So all of what I said is educational purposes, and because I am employed by a big hospital, so I always want to make sure that we know that this has nothing to do with that hospital, and I am speaking just for educational purposes.
All right. So get your own doctor. That's what she's trying to tell you. These are these are suggestions. Please get your own doctor to have a one-on-one as far as a customized plan for you. But I put the link here: Facebook, Eve Ade, and then Instagram, dr.evemd, and also the website as well to connect. For those of you watching, I appreciate you for joining live, and those who are going to watch and replay, please share this with married couple near you, someone contemplating marriage. Let's make our marriages heaven on earth so we also benefit. Okay, Doc, and I got a high 10. This was good. This is good.
High 10. It's all about legacy. So our marriage is legacy. So definitely let's make it good. Thank you, Dr. Tolu. We're going to do this again.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we will. You already answered that live. So, yeah. So, since you said it, we have it on record that you said we're going to do this again. So, no pressure.
Yes.
All right. Let me see those who attended. Thank you so much. Evocare MB, Ms. Joy and Du, Coyote, Olufemi, Bajum. I apologize, Sir Ma. You know, if I should accord you the respect with all the respect. So, those of you watching, please share. This has been amazing having a conversation with you this Tuesday evening. And as always, if you or anyone you know is looking for an awesome, a compassionate and thorough family physician who will have conversations like this to help you live long and well, I am she. Have a good one, everyone. Doc, you rock.
You rock. Thank you for all you do.